Greetings and God bless. Welcome to another episode of Pastor Mike, Dynamic Voices for a Diverse Church, powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective. I'm your host, Tyler Burns. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Burns Clan. Please follow at your own risk. And joining me, as always, is the founder of The Witness, the man, the myth, the legend, the two-time best-selling author, Mr. Blue Check Verified himself, the essence of the blue check, Dr. Jemar Tisby. What's going on, brother?
No more blue check because I refuse to pay the subscription fee to get the blue check.
You still a blue check in our hearts, brother. This is what we trying to say. We still honor you. The Black church taught me give honor to whom honor is due.
Amen. Amen. And I still got the blue check on Instagram, on Facebook. You know, it's still there if you look for it.
Okay, pause. Before we keep going, I do have to acknowledge the fact that, brother, you got an incredible book that's coming out.
Oh,
and the people, the PTM people haven't even really heard about it from us in the flow.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah, The Spirit of Justice, Stories of Faith, Race, and Resistance. If you're watching the video of this, you can see the poster of the book cover behind me with 3 historical figures. Do you know who they are, Tyler, perchance? You can lean in. Who's in the middle? You can't see it.
That's Lady Kang. That's Lady Kang in the middle.
Yes.
And then that's Mary McLeod Bethune on the right.
Close, but no. Anna Murray Douglas, Frederick Douglass's first wife.
Hold up. We need a recount. Stop the count. Stop the count.
Look it up.
Who's on the left?
Elias Camp Morris, E.C. Morris, the first president of the National Baptist Convention, USA, Inc., the largest religious body of Black Christians in the country.
See, now I'm going to have to, okay, I'll never forget it again. You ask me again, you can wake me up at 3 a.m. I'm going to be prepared, man. Where can people go? Where can people pre-order this? Because pre-orders are the key.
Pre-orders are open, and y'all, listen, it makes a really, really big difference when you pre-order. It boosts it up in all of these charts that tell booksellers like bookstores, libraries, and of course the bestseller charts that this is a book that people are eager to have in their hands or on their devices, depending on your preference. So if you are planning on ordering a book, pre-order it. That is what helps the author most. The book comes out September 3rd. It is available for pre-order now anywhere books are sold. If you go to any of my social media profiles, it'll be the first link that you find there, as well as on my Substack. I've written about it several times, so would really appreciate your support pre-ordering The Spirit of Justice.
Man, so last time we had brand new content for the people, some freshness with you and me. Man, a lot has changed in the world. Man, Drake was a viable artist. Kendrick Lamar was in a comatose state.
Don't R.I.P. Drake already.
Hey, listen, man, we're going to be bopping to, anyway, I'm not even going. Okay, we got to, but see, there's some other things that have happened, right? A number of things has happened in the church. And if I know anything as a pastor and a leader of a church, it's always stuff that's happening in the church. Always stuff going down in the Black church. One of the things that went down in the Black church recently is a very famous pastor out of Houston, Texas, Pastor Keion Henderson at Lighthouse Church. He was viral, trending, because in the middle of a worshipful moment where he was singing the overflow of the Richard Smallwood classic, Total Praise, he hears something in the background. And it wasn't just him, it was all of us. We heard a woman screaming and projecting very loudly. Now, what is fascinating?
Yeah, it sounded like she was crying.
Yes.
She was emotional in the moment.
So what was fascinating about this is you can tell he kind of like twitches a little bit as his eyes are closed. And then he decides he's going to actually go over there and get her attention in the middle of the worship moment. And then he's going to tell her to hush. But the way he's going to tell her is he's going to snap.
I know that snap. That got you.
Man.
You snap at children. You snap at a dog. I don't know.
Bro.
And it was in the microphone. So he's not like putting the microphone down and telling her to shush or be quiet. He's doing this into the microphone where everybody can hear. Right. So it's public. All of it's public.
And beyond this, I think people need to understand. Were you familiar with Keion Henderson before?
Not at all. Not at all.
So Keion Henderson is a very famous pastor slash artist because he's also a singer. He's
Well,
in
I
the
might have heard
T
some of his songs. Yeah. Okay.
Probably not, but like I do, he doesn't have like super mainstream songs,
Okay.
but he is a recording artist and has received award nominations and awards and things of that nature. So he was a college basketball star, extremely gifted, and then kind of got his start through the Bishop TD Jakes camp. That's how he got wide
Gotcha.
promotion. He was also in the news a lot because of some personal stuff that he was navigating with his family. But by and large, he's been known as one of the 5 to 10 most recognizable young Black pastors in America,
Mm,
I would say.
mm.
You can put him up there with people like a Mike Todd or a Travis Green or a John Gray. And Keion Henderson is going to be in that same ecosystem, especially
Gotcha.
with his connection to Bishop Jakes. Now, what also gave him a lot of acclaim is that he recently married Shaquille O'Neal's ex-wife. So
Oh.
because he married her, now he's in completely different circles that he wouldn't have been before because of
Hmm.
her background and her prominence as well. So very gifted speaker. I heard him recently speak and preach at a conference.
Huh.
Whip smart, all the above. So, no personal judgments or attacks or shade or anything like that. I just have to say this because we mentioned names, and I feel like it would be weird for us not to mention names. And we said, "Hey, a pastor," like I think we
Yeah,
should probably
it's
just
out
say who it
there.
is.
The moment
Um,
went viral.
but we're not trying to attack this person's character or anything like that. But we have to talk about this moment. Church can be weird sometimes, Jemar.
I
Church can
am
be a little
always so
weird.
curious because folks know you on the mic. They kind of know by now, if they've been rocking with PTM, that you're a pastor, but we don't hear a ton about Sundays or about, your actual congregational experience. And
Sure,
as soon
sure.
as I saw the clip, I thought of you. I was like, I wonder how Tyler would handle that as a pastor, as a pastoral leader. And so I'm just curious, like, do you have like a wildest moment when you were
Mhm.
leading worship, when you were, it was Sunday morning or something happened? Do you have something that comes to mind?
This was before I was lead pastor, but there was a lady at our previous church expression years ago, and she would scream off key during worship. I
Was she in the
mean,
choir, or
like,
she's in the
she was not.
congregation?
No, she was in
Okay.
the congregation. And so I was in charge at this point, I was in charge of service transition and pretty much the service liturgy for those of you who are, in the more formal denominations. So I was in charge of service liturgy and transition. And so I would get up after worship to keep the service moving. And, she was in the bed, but not on key. Like, so no matter what she was singing, she was screaming the same exact key, like as loud as she possibly could. Um, and she was kind of doing this kind of mime interpretive thing. So she would
Oh,
like, kind of the Lil Kim. So if you're not watching, so if you've seen Lil Kim do her little thing, her little dance, so she was doing that and screaming at the same time. And I don't remember how I handled it. I never addressed it. I think our elders addressed it, but I never did. And it was mainly the only reason I think they addressed it was because it was a distraction. Like it was a
right.
consistent distraction. You
So
know,
she wouldn't do this just one time, or
no,
like
this
this
was
is
like
repeated,
consistent. Yeah,
like different services, different weeks, or just within this
consistent,
service? Oh, wow.
consistent.
She
Yeah,
was known for this. Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
bro. It was like a feature. Like you came to church, it's just there she was. You know what I'm saying?
Ah,
So that was probably the wildest thing. I mean, we've had other things like, when I was leading youth services, we had fights break out like while I was leading the
ooh,
service or something like that. But that was kind of like, with youth, it's kind of like that's kind of a feature, city youth ministry. You just kind of get used to some of that stuff. But I
wow.
don't know if, yeah, I would say that at our church at Rod City, yeah, I would say that we have maybe some expressions that some people would find to be like, oh, I don't know if I like that or I understand what's happening. But I don't think there's been anybody who's been disruptive or distracting. I think the only thing I would say that sometimes happens. We have a very talkative church. So our church will talk back to me and keep talking to me. Right. So sometimes if I, you know what I'm saying?
You
So
trying to
sometimes if
move
I
on.
say something, I love it. Sometimes I'll say something and then they'll be like, yeah, you know how pastors will pause for effect. And then
Yeah.
somebody be like, yeah, it be like that. You know, it's
Okay.
like, you know, so
They got a whole statement.
I'm like, right, exactly. You know, so that's what I would say probably is the most. But when growing up, there is one story that I felt like has always typified and made me think of. It made me think of this story when I saw this clip. Is there would be a lady who would, at intermittent points throughout the service, she would be in the middle aisle and she would scream out, "For truly I am in this place, for truly I am in this place, for truly I am in this place, for truly I am in
Oh,
this place." Almost like it was a prophetic utterance. And she would say,
okay.
"I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." And then she would just fall back. She would fall back, hit the ground. I'm serious,
Huh.
man. And
Huh.
that
That
one
sounds
was like,
painful.
I don't know how or why she did it or what was the impetus behind it, but she would fall back and she would hit her head every time. And
Oof.
out of safety, people were like, you don't need to do that out of a safety
Yeah.
concern, right?
Yeah.
Beyond just simply the distraction and the disruptiveness of it. And it was like, you can stop, right? This wasn't like an emotional utterance. It was actually something
Mm.
that she was trying to draw attention to herself.
Ooh, now see,
Based
that's the
upon
thing.
based upon conversations we had with her before, she was trying to. But here's what I'll say: I've never seen in church, and I don't even think I've ever seen my father do this. Silence someone. I don't think I've ever seen that. I've never
Now,
seen him snap at somebody. I've never seen him say, "Hey, you, be quiet. Hey, hush." I don't think I've ever seen that.
so folks should realize, like, I come from a tradition where I didn't grow up Christian. I did go to Catholic schools. They are not known for being emotive most of the time in mass. There are charismatic Catholics, but that was not the strain that I was part of. Then when I became Christian, it was through the ministry of a white evangelical youth group. And then I started going to the church that sponsored the youth group, which was a white evangelical church, which was not known for too much expression. You might get some hands raised on a particularly, animated Sunday, but that would be about it. And then it gets even more staid after that because I get into these Reformed Christian circles and these Presbyterian circles. And the joke about Presbyterians is the frozen chosen, the chosen's part speaking to their beliefs about God's sovereignty and election and all of that. The frozen part meaning they stiff. They don't clap, they don't sway, they don't raise
At all.
hands
At
at
all.
all. And that stereotype's not too far off the truth, especially when you get into some of the older, more established churches. There's a very established liturgy, things that you do and don't do, and nobody really even said it. It's the culture of the church, as it is in more expressive places. You sort of come in, and even as somebody brand new to the congregation, you look around you, particularly during musical worship, and you get the cues. Are people shouting? Are they raising their hands? Are they moving? Are they dancing? Are they being slain in the spirit, et cetera, et cetera? Are they standing there looking at the hymnal very stiff, which doesn't necessarily mean it's not worshipful or emotional. It's a different cultural expression. I can mean that, but
Right.
it doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean that. So we're not like putting these things on a hierarchy per
Right.
se,
Right.
but I do think it's important to articulate for folks like me who may not come out of these traditions where expressiveness, physical expressiveness, vocal expressiveness in worship is fairly common. So can you explain, what some of the ethos or even the theology is behind having this be a part of worship and it's an accepted and even celebrated thing?
Yeah, so I think it's tripart, I would say. I think first of all, expressiveness in worship is cultural, right? So it is cultural. I don't say cultural as the foundation, but there are things, especially in the Black Christian expression, specifically, I would say, in our modern churches, as the Baptist fit or the Pentecostal shout moment
Mm.
or the praise break. Like those things are natural, emotive, cultural staples. Now, these things have roots in our Africanness, our diasporic identity. They have roots in the way that Southern churches praised
Mm-hmm.
God with rhythm, with cadence, but they also had root in our personal experiences with bondage. So we could not be fully free. And because we
Mm.
could not be fully free, we had to express ourselves in worship. It also is theological, where it comes from specific psalms that tell us to make a joyful noise unto the Lord, to
Yeah.
bless the Lord, to dance, to shout. But it is also psychological as well. And this
Mm.
is kind of the third thing that gets into what I think probably seems to be happening in this clip. And that is that there is a psychological release of
Mm.
pain, of grief, of gratitude, of frustration, of thankfulness and thanksgiving. There is a psychological expression because often what is forced upon Black people through weathering and through microaggressions and through the cares of life is an internalization of the pain and the emotions that we feel. And church has historically been the safe place for us to, as one writer has famously said, a safe place for us to never quit praising God.
Mm.
So they like to never quit praising God. Why? Because we didn't have a space to fully express ourselves. Any sort of expression in culture could have gotten us hurt, harmed, maimed, killed, or silenced. And so the Black church has always had, through its cultural, theological, and also psychological foundation and base, an expressive identity. When I recently spoke about expression at a conference, expressive theology, I said expressive theology has two wings on the expressive theology plane. There's two wings. It's the audacity, it's the capacity to mourn and the audacity to shout.
Mm. The capacity to
The
mourn and
capacity
the
to mourn
audacity to shout.
and the audacity to shout.
I like that.
That's if I had to summarize what expressive theology is and what Black Christian expression looks like, it is the capacity to mourn, to bemoan, to lament, to cry, to weep, to wail, to travail, but also the audacity to shout and to praise and to dance and to sing and to move your bodies and to together enter into that expressive moment as one body. That's kind of how I would explain
That's
what it means.
brilliant. No, that is super helpful. And I like how you said the psychological part. I've experienced that. It is cathartic. Whether it's joy, whether it's sorrow, whether it's lament, whether it's just becoming overcome by the awesomeness of God, to fully express yourself through tears, through shouts, through hand raise and physical motion, you actually sort of exit that experience, at the end of the service or whatever, you feel this sort of healthy, like draining, like it's out of you. And it's found a place to go in worship that is holy and right. And you've channeled it in a positive way in that sense. And so I can definitely relate to experiences like that. I also think that theology speaks to a broader interpretation that Black Christians have of the faith, which is holistic and integrative and not
Yes.
siloed and separated. So, in other words, we understand in many of our Black Christian traditions the integration of body, mind, spirit, so that the worship moment is an intellectual exercise as you're listening to and appreciating the prayers, the sermons, the words, the teachings, the good news message. It is soul, because obviously this is spiritual content here that is speaking to realities that go beyond what we can see, touch, hear, taste, smell. But it's also body.
Yes.
That
Yes.
we are embodied souls, that we are embodied beings, and that our bodies too are sacred and our bodies too are part of worship. And I think that speaks to a whole host of issues, not least of which how we understand justice as affecting not just our soul salvation, but our material well-being as well.
So you're bringing up so many great points because we worship God with our whole being.
Mm-hmm.
We are committed to worshiping God in an embodied way, not a disembodied way that just simply engages our minds, but an embodied way that includes our fullness. You know, you worship, that is how we are called to worship God, all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, right? And that's how we're called to love God. But I think also what is fascinating to me is that there are these moments where Black church has been the space for many people, not for everybody. And I think that should be said, right? Black church has not been a safe space for everybody, but I do think it has been by and large the space where people can at least be seen to the extent that they can begin the work. So I think a lot of the problem has been when people have assumed that the expression is the fullness of the work, not the beginning of the work.
That's good.
So this is important because some people tell you to come to church and shout when really you need a therapist.
Say that.
Like some people tell you, come to church, shout, praise God through it. When you need a budget, you don't need to praise God for a breakthrough. You need a budget, right? You don't need to praise God for that. Yes, praise God for that. That's the beginning of the work of pushing off to the one who has control over all things. But that is not where we stop. That is where the work begins. The healing work begins. I'll give you an example of this. I was in, when I was pastoring, when we were all nations, I went to the headquarters for a service. And I just happened to be in Chicago, and I said, I'm going to go to the main campus. And it was my first time being in a full service. And so Dr. Stevenson, he preaches a pretty significant amount, walks throughout the church, things of that nature. And I'll never forget this moment where in the middle of his message, I felt, kind of this unction from the Spirit. I took a deep breath, right? He said something that made me take a deep breath. And then I felt this unction from the Spirit, this feeling, right? This gut instinct, palpable feeling. Some would say even a word of knowledge, right? And I felt the Spirit say, he's going to come by and let you lay that burden down.
Okay.
And I remember I tilted my head to the side and I just said audibly, real quiet. I said audibly, but he's preaching. And about 3 minutes later, he walked over to me and he put his hand on my back while he was preaching. And he just patted my back. He said, it's all right. And I remember I started crying. And the cry turned into a weep. Now, mind you, the service still going on.
Yeah.
This isn't during altar call. This is the moment. This is actually, it's on my IG. If y'all follow me on IG, you'll see it. And he leans over and says, the mic picked up him saying, that's 20 years of pain.
Wow.
And it was, right?
That is profound.
So he kept going. He said, minister to him. So a lady next to me who was an intercessor, she started praying for me and ministering to me. And, that was a catalyst for a whole host of therapy conversations.
No doubt. 20 years.
Because I said, oh, there's something in here that's deeper than just simply parental, family, general church. There's something deeper that causes me to feel a burden in the sanctuary. So I need to address that burden. So it's the beginning of the work for me. It wasn't the work. I didn't wake up and say, oh, well, I didn't stop crying. And I said, oh, wow, I've handled it all. No,
right.
It was the beginning of the work.
Yeah, it was a release
spark
that opened it up. Yeah, yeah.
Which I think leads us back to this whole concept of, bro, how do you feel about shushing people while they're navigating this?
You know how you watch the sitcom The Office and it's cringe because it's secondhand embarrassment is the label they give it. You see people doing stuff that, you know, if you were there in that situation would feel really uncomfortable and embarrassing, right? That's how I felt watching this video of the pastor in the middle of a song, in the middle of worship with who knows how many hundreds or even thousands of people watching, literally say, shh. Like it wasn't just be quiet or quiet. It was shh, which that very sound is triggering, right? Like it comes with so much baggage of a sense of whoever's doing the shushing is in charge, is in control, has some sort of power or authority, or they want to claim it. And then the person being shushed is automatically put in a position of in the wrong, disruptive, must be controlled, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, not that there's never an instance where you would say shh or shush someone, but in the middle of worship, it was jarring because that's one of the times where you want people to be free, or at the very least, you don't want to sort of interrupt the feeling or the atmosphere of worship with this harsh kind of interjection of shush. Then it makes everyone self-conscious. Well, am I being too loud? Am I being too expressive? Am I going to be next? What is going to happen to that person? So what was already a distracting situation now becomes a distraction on top of the distraction. But I mean, there's dynamics going on there in the middle of it. And I'm just curious, like, you as a pastor. So one of the things that came out was there was an interview afterwards. And then this pastor says, you know, social media likes to do cuts, not context, by which he meant, you know, just little clips. I think he said clips, not context, and little clips, little snippets where you don't get the whole story. So he went on and he explained, you know, this isn't the first time they've had private conversations with this person. It's an ongoing thing, just like the situation you were describing. And so it had come to a head for him to where he was willing to do it in the middle of worship. This wasn't his first, you know, instinct of it. And I don't know, does that hold any weight with you like as a worship leader?
Jemar. I can't speak to any conversations he's had prior to this moment. I can't even really speak to the decision of what to do in worship, because I can't say there's never a time where I wouldn't silence someone, especially if I felt like someone was intending to do something that was distracting from what God was trying to do, right? If the intention was poor. I can't say I wouldn't ever do that. Let me tell you what I would never do. You couldn't pay me to go on national television and talk about one of my church members. You couldn't pay me.
Wow.
You hear me? You couldn't pay me.
Why not?
Those are God's people, man. That's God's daughter. And I don't care how frustrated, man, I have stories. I don't care how frustrated I've ever been. You cannot pay me to go on, and you know that person's identity, and go on national television and say she a problem for us. So I had to silence her. I think I view the pastorate differently. One of my great challenges as being a pastor has been trying to, and I'm not saying I'm doing this well. I'm struggling and wrestling with this. One of my greatest challenges that I've been wrestling with is, just because I am most visible does not mean I am central. So just because I am most visible to people as a pastor does not mean that the worship gathering revolves around me.
Brother, I wish you could say that to a lot more pastors. Yes, keep going.
I have responsibility. I have authority. I have office. I have function. I will give an account to God for what I do with my church. But just because I am the person on stage with the mic does not mean that I am the person that is most important in the entirety of the church. So here's my personal feeling. I see things every time I preach that annoy me, that make me say, I don't know why they're doing that. I can know, I'm hyper aware. I notice it. I see certain things. I'm like, why do we do this? Why do we think about this? But in the moment of worship, the most important person in the moment of worship is Jesus.
Yeah.
Though he may not be seen, Jesus is the center. And then in an earthly bodily context, the most important person for me to pay attention to is the person who needs to get closest to Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
Not the person who is most powerful, not the person who has the title, not the person who has the authority, but the person who is on the margins.
Yes.
Who is most in need of a touch. It's the one who's going to touch the hem of his garment. That's who's most important, not the disciples who are crowding around him you have him always, but for them, it may be that moment. Now, here's the reason why I say this is, man, our job as pastors and spiritual leaders is to try as best as we possibly can to fight for gentleness with God's people, to fight for it. I'm not saying that he hasn't had those conversations. I'm saying there should be if you've had four years of conversations, my natural question is, how'd she get on the stage?
True.
Well, how you get on the stage then? In a church that big, 15,000, 20,000 members, however much it is, how did she get on the stage? And if she got on the stage and you know that this is an issue, why isn't there protocol for the elders or the intercessors or the altar workers to minister to her? To lay hands on her. Because he had to do it
in the most visible way is what ended up happening. That was my first thought too, is if this has been an ongoing issue, how did she get up there? Why was she up there? Even if, let's say, okay, this is your last chance, right? And she's up there, right? Even if, then doesn't it become a simpler matter to let it happen and then afterwards say, that was it. Thank you so much. We would love for you to serve in other ways.
Exactly.
But this happened in the most public way possible. And that's the reason I think why it went viral. If the elders had come who didn't have microphones, who were off camera, which is a whole other thing, to do it, it probably wouldn't have made a viral moment. But because the worship leader, the pastor, this well-known person, public figure, as well as a pastor, did it in such a direct way, did it in such an obvious way, that's when it became a thing. And now the thing is not even the sound she was making. The thing is how the pastor handled it, which is not what you want.
So you see, right? It's shifted. Now, again, all that he's saying, I don't question the veracity of it. Far be it for me to say how I would handle 15,000.
Right.
This is not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying, oh, he's a bad guy. He's this, he's that. I have nothing. I don't know him personally. Here's what I will say, though. Man, when you decide to stream your services, you are no longer just doing things for the local church.
Yeah.
People watch you. I was in a random meeting a couple of days ago, and someone said, hey, I've been meaning to ask you. I was listening to one of your messages. Don't live anywhere near Pensacola. I was listening to one of your messages. What you said, that was really profound. Can you explain, though, this, and this? And I'm sitting there like,
wow.
What?
Yeah. Had no idea.
No clue. Because that's not our church, right? Like, we're not a world-known church. Like, that's not what it's like. People are watching.
Yes.
As soon as you. So now I have different responsibility beyond just.
Yes.
So people have been saying, don't talk about what a pastor does in his local church. Here's the thing. We saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And because we saw it now, it has caused me to think and ask the question, what do we do?
Exactly. Yep. I think it put everybody.
who's on the now. So for us, we know exactly what we would do in that particular situation because we have people that we can point to. And we have people that are designated to make sure that if someone needs extra ministry, they receive extra ministry. Actually, it's funny, I'm thinking about it. Man, a couple of weeks ago, how someone was not, it wasn't disruptive, it wasn't that loud, but they were clearly having a moment, and someone came alongside them. One of our team members came alongside. I was just thinking about it. It didn't even blip. I didn't even say anything.
Because
I didn't even it's just the team was prepared to minister. Again, yes. What was the most important thing happening in that moment? What was on the stage or what was happening with her? And I'll say this, man. I was telling somebody recently. They said, you strike me as a real gentle pastor. I don't know if that's true. You'll have to ask my people. Honestly, I don't know if that's true. And some of them listen to the podcast. Some will be like, nah, that ain't true. And others of them might be like, absolutely, it is. But
they're going to be like, pass me the mic.
Right. Exactly. And I'm wide open to that, by the way. I think that's fair. But I think when they said, you seem like a gentle pastor, I said, I got emotional. I was actually on television. I got emotional. I said, I want to try to be gentle with people because people were gentle with me.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah.
People have been very gentle with me. And the times they could have put me on blast, they didn't. They pulled me to the side. The times they could have made me a sermon illustration in a viral clip, they decided that they were going to shoot me a text and have a Zoom meeting with me.
Wow.
And say, shape up.
Yeah.
So even if, we got to be gentle with people. We got to be gentle.
Your neighbor as yourself. Treat others how you would want to be treated. I mean, I've been an interim pastor. I've been the preacher. All kinds of stuff happens, and it is easy to sort of armchair quarterback it when you're not in that situation. When you're in the moment, when you've got dozens, hundreds, even thousands of people facing your direction,
of course,
you are the focus of the attention, even if you're not the center of it, right? You just never know. You never know. And it could be you handle it in a wise way 99 out of 100 times. And then the one time you don't is when the cameras are on.
Oh, that's big facts.
And somebody puts it out there, right?
Absolutely.
So utmost empathy, and God only knows, what I've done or how I've handled situations and how people viewed that. And, maybe cameras were there or not. So there's that. The other thing I don't want people to forget is what you said before, which was essentially centering the marginalized, thinking about the people who need this encounter with Jesus the most, in the sense that they're in a fragile place, right? I think that's very powerful. We talk about that sort of in justice circles of centering the marginalized and how our policies and our actions and our rules and our programs ought to serve the least of these, my brothers and sisters, as Jesus put it. I think that's powerful in the context of worship, in the context of worship leadership. Who is that reed that is bent and threatening to break, but can be healed by that encounter with Jesus, right?
Come on, bro.
I think that is critical as a lens, as a grid to have. I think you can come across as a gentle pastor because you've set up contingencies, which is also what's kind of surprising about this. This is not a church that is unfamiliar with emotive worship, whether from this individual or anyone else. And so I don't know if there was a breakdown, somebody was absent that day, they were caught up in the spirit and weren't doing, what they were supposed to. But it seems like you put yourself as a leader in a position to deal with people gently when you're secure in the fact that we have a protocol for this. This is, it may come up. We can't predict when it'll come up or how, but we do have contingencies for if something happens. It's like having, you go to a hotel, there's a map on every floor of a route outside the building in case of emergency. And so when you have that, you can rest a little bit easier in the moment. And so I think that's really important for us to think through, even in the frozen chosen circles, even in the places where you wouldn't necessarily expect a sort of disruption or a distraction due to emotive worship, which is my final point, which is that corporate worship is corporate, meaning there is a specialness to the body coming together at the same time in the same place. And that changes some dynamics, right? It's not, yes, the Lord is present wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, right? But within that, there has to be a unity. That's why in the epistles, there are all these sort of protocols and instructions for worship, for speaking in tongues, for who speaks and when and how, so as not to distract from the gathering or the assembly of the people, and everyone can get something out of it. Everyone can contribute something to it, right? That's the other side of it. It's not silencing. It's saying that everyone has something to contribute. Here's how we're going to go about contributing it so that everyone has a chance and everyone can experience and everyone can encounter. So, I mean, these things go deep. I really feel bad, not just for the pastor, but for the person who was shushed. I don't know how they're going to process this in terms of his church hurt. You know what I mean? You have to deal with that aftermath too.
And that's the most important thing, right? At the end of the day, Pastor Keion is going to be fine. I mean, you know, he is, I don't think he is bothered or deterred based upon our opinions of him. He had a line ready for it. So I don't think he's bothered or deterred by that. I do think that it is an impossibly hard job. But here's the thing I think we need to remember. Here's the thing I think we need to remember, because it's true, right? It is, we armchair quarterback this stuff, and you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done this. Here's the thing that I think would free a lot of people in our role. You're not supposed to get it all right. The point is not perfection. The point is faithfulness.
That's a word.
And I think for some people, we don't need to be right. We need to be faithful. What's the right thing to do in this scenario? I don't know, but I'm going to err on the side of faithfulness. I'm going to err on the side of gentleness. I'm going to err on the side of love and grace. I'm just going to lean that way. And if I get it right, I get it right. If I get it wrong, I'm going to own it and I'm going to keep moving. Because the point isn't, let me try to find, it's a very like works-based kind of perspective. Let me try to find the perfect thing to say in this regard. So I can honestly say, shoot, I probably got it wrong too. I probably got it wrong. I'm probably going to get it wrong. Could get it wrong Sunday. Could get it wrong the day after that. Could go viral. Who knows? But I hope my concern won't be how I look. I hope the concern will most be, are my people safe?
That's good.
I hope, right? Like that's, and if y'all see anything, hey, this is the PCM community. Let me know if you like, nah, bro, because at one time you was, yeah, okay, well, cool. Seriously, it's hard, it's difficult, but we are not in it to be perfect. We're in it to be faithful. He's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things now. I can give you more. Enter into this joy. But I hope our main focus is not, let me get this moment right. This is the moment. This is the moment. God's going to show up regardless of if we hit the right notes, if the flow is right. It is our job to make sure that we are paying attention to his spirit's leading. But God's going to show up. Man, at the end of the day, I'm going to strive, I hope, to not embarrass God's people. And then if I find out, hey, you should have been tougher on them, you should have snapped at them, I'm gonna be like, you got me. you got me. And
you're in good company. I mean, Peter, Paul, the disciples, they surely didn't get it all right, but they were faithful. And I think part of faithfulness is also pastoral proximity.
Yeah.
Because if faithfulness means I didn't get it right, then I need to be able to come to a church member and have a relationship to where I can say that. And they understand and can take it in good faith and accept and it's not the first time they've heard from me personally. It's not the first time they've ever heard me express contrition or humility. Oh, now that you went viral and you look bad, now you're coming to me. That's a very different conversation than I know you by name. We've had conversations before. I prayed for you. We have a relationship. I got it wrong. I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? That is a different conversation, which we probably need to have a whole other episode on being televised, on being on video.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because that changes dynamics even internally, right?
And also whether or not you're there because you're fans of the pastor or family within the church.
Come now.
Okay, that's another another episode for another day. Hey, listen,
and we didn't even talk about having the experience, having the worship experience. Oh, we had church today. Church was good today. How so? Because it felt like a really good concert.
Okay. Wow. Wow. You just took this left.
I'm just saying. There's a lot to unpack here.
I want to tell people that before you are clicking out of this episode and going about your day, there's a great conversation happening over at the Witness BCC IG. And there are a lot of comments that are going up about this. Some really good ones. So if you want to continue this conversation, it's happening over there. Reach out to us, tweet us, text us, IG us, story us, whatever it is, snail mail us, whatever you feel is best. And we want to hear what you think about it, how you felt. And are we tripping? Are the brothers tripping? Is PTM tripping? Are y'all gonna do diss tracks like K-Dot did with Drake?
Here we go.
Y'all gonna do diss tracks. There's so much more. Hey, next time, Jemar, we gotta talk about the church is whack. The institution is whack.
Somebody whack. Said this. This is a quotation. This is not just Tyler. Don't make him go viral for this one.
Y'all know what I'm talking about. That's what people did. We gotta talk about Ty Tribbett next time. Okay. Deal?
Yes, but I feel you. We want the listeners to be expressive. Let us know your thoughts.
All right, family. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to PTM, do so. Leave us a 5-star review. Nothing less than that. Please. Come on, y'all. Leave us a 5-star review. Also, you can support the podcast by going to patreon.com/Pass the Mic.
Pass the Mic.
Go and pre-order The Spirit of Justice by Dr. Jemar Tisby. And we will see you next time on the next episode of
Pass the Mic.